because it kind of lines up with a lot of gangster stuff that governments do. So we also got to talk about governments. Governments are the biggest gangsters on earth.
Okay, so you are my first guest on Slam TV podcast. Actually, you have been on my podcast before, but this is the new, improved, with the best guest ever. So I obviously thought of you when I wanted to see who I could, have to guest the show with me. So thank you, Alex Alonso, for joining me. And we're recording. You are live in your studio.
Uh huh.
So
Okay, well, thank you for having me.
you're welcome.
Slam TV.
That's right. This is our second show we're doing today. And for those of you that aren't familiar, Alex Alonso has a huge list of credentials. Why don't you go down your credentials, Mr. Alonso?
Oh man. I guess my number one credential is I'm a peacemaker. I've been working on bringing neighborhoods together, and that's my primary interest right now. Aside from all the other stuff I do, working on this peace work is actually something that hits my desk every single day. So that's the main credential that I want to promote. A lot of people who've already been following me, they know some of the other stuff that I've done, but they may not be aware of this street work that I've been doing, and that's it's like an everyday thing for me now.
Yeah, so your career just keeps evolving, as it should. I know you have a degree, right, in Chicano studies?
A degree?
Yeah.
No, I don't have a degree in Chicano studies. I worked at the Chicano Latino Studies department at Cal State LA. I got degrees in liberal studies, environmental studies, and geography.
And that really has contributed with the success I feel with your YouTube channel.
I guess because it was when I was studying for one of those degrees that I learned about the internet, and then I created StreetGangs.com from USC while sitting there working on a school assignment. But I would have eventually got into the internet like everybody else did. Everybody's pretty much online, but I got online pretty early because USC was one of those first online universities. I had an email address in 1993, and I didn't even use it because there was no one to email in 93. But yeah, I started all this online stuff pretty early because of USC.
All right, well, let's talk about what you're doing right now. You got one of the hottest podcasts around,
The Gangster
the
Chronicles.
Gangster Chronicles.
Yes.
Um, Man, I'm seeing so many big people stopping by, and you guys are having a lot of heated debates. And I think it's great what you guys are doing. You guys are bringing a lot of education to past generations, to other regions that, obviously Los Angeles, people all over the world are so interested in the culture and the lifestyle here in Los Angeles. And for you to be able to, clarify a lot of the things that come about as far as stories. I think you guys are doing a great service to the world. And
Thank you.
are you surprised by the interest you guys are getting?
No, not really, because I knew at some point that people were going to start listening to us and that people were going to start talking about us, and at some point it was going to, become bigger than what it was. I mean, I wouldn't have took the job if I didn't see the potential in hooking up with those two guys, James McDonald and Reggie Wright Jr. So it was just a matter of time before there was a large audience, before the following grew, and it took what, maybe 6 months before we got a huge audience. And no, I knew it was going to happen at some point because we're talking about the same stuff that I basically was doing on streetgangs.com, street TV, and I already knew what type of audience that generates. So it was just a matter of time before the audience grew with the Gangster Chronicles. And then, in addition to the stuff that I already talked about, we got Death Row history, we have Death Row Records history, we got Tupac history, we got the whole pretty much history of what happened from like 1991 to 1996 right there with two guys.
And, and what do you mean when you say two guys?
Well, James McDonald was actually working with Death Row Records. He actually predates Death Row Records. Before it was Death Row Records, it was Fernhill Records. And that's when James McDonald, aka Mob James, started working in the music business. And then Reggie Wright Jr. comes in a few years later, like around 90, I don't know, like 93, and becomes part of he creates the security for Death Row Records. So with those two guys, there's like unlimited stories of what was going on um, musically in Los Angeles, the West Coast gangster rap scene from really 1988, 89 to 1996 when Tupac was killed.
So how'd you guys all team up?
Well, James and Reggie were already working on the show themselves, and they had a producer that was guiding them and showing them the podcast game. And it just came to their attention that they needed a third person, and they went through a few names, and my name came up, and I kind of did an audition on one of the episodes, and after that episode aired, they invited me to become a permanent member of the team, and that's all through a guy named Norman Steele. Norman Steele kind of just put he assembled that whole team, and I think it was a great idea.
Definitely. I think you're a great fit for that show. Obviously, again, taking it back to your huge YouTube channel, the huge success of your YouTube channel, I think you got some legit, actually, the most legit people you could have to be the ones to give their opinion on that time. I hear you guys reference like cultures in other areas and how other areas, generally speaking, like the East Coast, they have a huge interest in the West Coast and vice versa. But there's so many stories that there's a lot of mistruths that you guys are able to clear up. What's one of the biggest, things that you feel you're really able to help clear up as far as one of your recent podcasts?
Well, there's so many misconceptions about, like, for example, who killed Tupac. There's about 100 stories about who killed Tupac, and there's even a theory that Reggie Wright Jr. was behind the murder of Tupac Shakur, and I can clearly tell you that Reggie Wright Jr. had nothing to do with the murder of Tupac Shakur, other than he was doing security that day. Some people can blame him for not having tight enough security, but he wasn't involved in the homicide. He wasn't behind wanting Tupac dead. There was other people behind that. So, that's one of the things that you'll learn from listening to the show is the various theories and people involved during that time period, and why some theories are just absolutely ridiculous and why other theories are stronger.
I love it. Your guys' stories, I'm so fascinated, again, like most people, and the reason I actually was drawn to you was when I saw you on TV. I mentioned this on our last episode when you and I sat down and spoke, but I saw you on TV, and you were on the show Who Killed Tupac. I feel it was one of the best online documentaries ever done about who killed him. There was so many twists and turns, so many different accounts, so many different opinions. You would think by now there is like a clear story of what happened. To this day, like you said, everyone has a different perspective. Every single person, from the person that is closest to Tupac to the person that worked for him to the person that was in a rival gang, So that's really what fascinated when I saw you, and you bring in your education and also being around people from that time. And I remember I was able to connect with you online, and um, so you're still bringing it. You're still bringing it to the people. Again, it's a topic that I feel like it's never going to end. But beyond that, there's a lot of other education that you guys can bring to people that aren't around this, you know, this this area. I guess this area of Los Angeles.
Yeah, you're right. It's never going to end. A conversation about him is never going to end. You're talking about I believe that was an 8-part series on A&E with civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump. And what makes that coverage of the Tupac murder probably more interesting than others is because it was 8 parts. It was either 6 parts, no, 6 parts or 8 parts. Most of the time when you watch a documentary, it's like maybe 1 hour or 90 minutes. But they were able to spend maybe like, I don't know, if it's 8 episodes, close to 8 hours of interviews and information. It was okay. It's certainly better than most of the other.
I remember my mind was blown
Yeah,
for whatever reason, because in the end, it was still there. You still have so many questions after that, eight episode.
yeah, definitely. But I mean, we'll be talking about Tupac for the next 20 years and more. I mean, look, we're still talking about Elvis Presley, and this dude died in 1977, and he's probably one of the biggest music thefts in the history of music. He was no, for real. He was stealing his style, he's stealing his dances, stealing his music from people like Little Richie. We don't even barely talk about Little Richie, but we still talking about Elvis Presley, and he died, I think, in 1977. So how many years ago was that? That's 43 years ago. So yeah, we're definitely going to be talking about Pac for many years to come because he's the GOAT. He's one of the best to ever do it, and he died tragically. It's not like he died of natural causes or he got to live a long life. The dude was murdered. He was killed in public. So we're always going to talk about him. And I think the same thing with Nipsey Hussle. Nipsey Hussle was killed on the streets, and we're going to talk about Nipsey for a long time.
Tupac again he was only 25 years old, and he seems so beyond his years, much like Nipsey Hussle. I don't know how old Nipsey was.
Nipsey was actually 33 years old. Tupac was 25. Nipsey was 33. And what's incredible about Pac, his career was only like 5 years long in terms of being in the public eye. He was on record with Digital Underground in 1991, and in '96 he's gone. So it's not, for those who don't know who grew up after his death probably think this guy had like this 20-year career because we talk about him so much and he had so much music out there, but it wasn't even a full 5 years. I think it's like 4 years and some months that we had Pac in terms of his career, and he left an incredible legacy just in those short years.
So, what, where can we catch your guys' podcast? What are you guys talking about next?
Man, I don't know what we're going to talk about next. I do know that I want to talk about this commander that was killed in Iraq.
Okay.
It's because it kind of lines up with a lot of gangster stuff that governments do. So we also got to talk about governments. Governments are the biggest gangsters on earth. The United States government being the most powerful government on earth. If you believe the theory that governments are very gangster in the way they operate, then you know that the United States, being the biggest country on earth, is probably one of the most gangster countries on earth. And they just killed a commander in Iraq, and the people in Iran, and he was Iranian. The people in Iran and Iraq are extremely disappointed about this drone attack. So I want to talk about this drone attack. I want to talk about this commander. I want to talk about what prompted Trump to even think that this guy had to go, and we're going to get into more details about that on the next episode.
Okay, cool.
Because that's like the ultimate gangster move is when you drop bombs on leaders of countries. So
Yeah.
how can we not talk about that?
Yeah, I think we're gonna get a lot of backlash from that country.
3 Americans already died since that happened. A soldier in Kenya and 2 American contractors. So this is actually putting a danger to U.S. citizens that want to travel abroad. It doesn't. We sit here and think that, oh, that's just the governments, getting at each other. But it affects me if I want to travel to
Definitely.
Egypt, or if I want to travel somewhere and I'm looked at as an American. I'm looked at someone that is hated. So we got to talk about this stuff.
To me, I think he's just trying to deflect the impeachment, which is the wrong reason to inflict or incite war. You know, definitely
Well,
the wrong reason.
I instruct for people who are interested in this topic to listen to the next episode. And I'm gonna try to break this down: what happened, why it happened, who this guy was, and we should have a pretty good conversation about it.
Or let our audience know where we can tune in.
The the podcast is available on just about every single podcast platform, but the main ones would be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Play. Those are the 3 main places that you could listen to every episode. Thursday morning, a new episode will be available, and you could always go back and binge listen to previous episodes. And if you want to see video clips, we also post video clips on the Digital Soapbox Network's YouTube page.
Yeah, you guys got a great show. Looking forward to seeing your next one.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Beyond your podcast, is there any other projects you're working on?
Just working, trying to knock out this Craig Munson story. I got 9 chapters done on the history of Craig Munson, who was considered a legendary figure on the streets of Los Angeles. He goes all the way back to the pre-1965 Watts era and created his own little clique in 1967. And then he kind of spawned the modern day street gang, the Crips and the Bloods, all kind of come from his lineage. He's also linked in with the Black Panther Party. And, he's just an interesting character. And I'm just continually working on his story.
Is he still alive?
He's still alive. He just turned 69 years old. And all his brothers, with the exception of one, he comes from a large family. It's 7 brothers. And only one brother is now, actually 2 of his brothers are no longer with us. One was killed, one who died from natural causes. And it's probably one of the most famous families in Los Angeles history, the Munsons. So yeah, he's still doing very well, and I hope to knock this story out in 2020. 2020 is my year to get some things done. 2020.
Well, you've already accomplished so much, Alex.
I don't feel like I've accomplished anything, to keep it real.
I'm
There's so many things that I want to do, so many things I haven't done, but I appreciate you recognizing the few things that I have done.
I'm super impressed by your work. You're always working on something really cool and huge. Um, the Craig Munson, is it going to be a book deal or is it a movie deal?
Well, it's the way I see it is the book gets done, and then hopefully there'll be some either movie or large scale TV project that can spin off from the book, because it's definitely a story that so many people would love to do. And he was quiet for so many years, for a couple of decades, and now he's willing to tell the story and share it, and really go into details about his life, and not just his life on the streets, but he became a legendary bodybuilder as well. One of the biggest to lift at his. He was at 270, 280 pounds at 6'1", ripped, when that was uncommon. You know, today that's the prototype of a successful bodybuilder, is to be like 250 and over. Now, when you go back to Arnold Schwarzenegger and those bodybuilders from the early 70s, they were just 220, 230 at their peak. And when Craig Munson came in the late 70s, early 80s at 270, people were like, this is the biggest guy that we have ever seen. So he doesn't just have a street career as a gang member. He doesn't just have a career with the Black Panther Party, but he also has a bodybuilding career that took him around the world, all to Europe. And so we're going to try to tell that entire story and bring it all together.
You know, I'll be watching everything you got going on. Again, I think the show you're on right now, the Gangster Chronicles, is always very well made. Um, the YouTube channel looks legit. I love the graphics. I don't know who your graphics person is, but as a graphic designer, I definitely appreciate those effects. So here's to you getting another YouTube plaque. You know, I know you got many plaques for all your subscribers. So.
Well, our the YouTube channel for our podcast, which is the Digital Soapbox Network, is almost at 100,000 subscribers just in like, I don't know, the last several months. So it's definitely growing, and we're gonna hit that plateau very soon. But I also want to just remind people, go check me out also on streetgangs.com, aka Street TV. I'm always putting out content every single week. I put out content, so don't forget about that channel either.
Of course not. What's your Instagram handle?
The best Instagram handle to find me on in terms of the content I create is street.television or street_gangs. Those are the two channels that I use to promote the content that I'm putting out. But if you're just trying to find me on a personal level, Alex Alonso 101.
Thank you so much for taking time out today and being my first guest on Slam TV.
Oh wow, I'm the first guest. I'm very honored to be your first guest, and I can't wait to see your show grow and develop.
We'll be in person again, but the beauty of Skype is that we get to do it virtual. So
I believe this is the first interview I've ever gave through the computer, through using a webcam. I don't think I've ever done a webcam interview before, so you're my first one.
I have vision. I'm a trendsetter. So this is gonna look legit when it comes out, and
I do prefer in person.
I know. Everyone I've asked, they're like, okay, when and where, and I'm like, whenever you have time, we're gonna Skype it, and it's like you can tell people are disappointed. They're like, oh. I'm like, it's so convenient because I get to see where you're working at, and you don't have to travel, and so I definitely wanted to do it this way, but maybe I'll do some more like in studio, in person stuff. But for now, I think this is got to make use of the internet, so why not do it this way?
Yeah, it is convenient. It's I just wonder what the quality of these cameras are. That's one of the things that I always wonder about using webcams is the camera quality. How does it look?
It looks great on my end.
Okay, because most of the time I'm using something like this, a DSLR camera with a nice lens to do my interviews. I cut no corners when I'm doing my interviews. I have actually two of these. But I appreciate everyone out there that's been following my movement for years. We got some big things happening in 2020. We got neighborhoods coming together that never thought they were going to come together. We got truces coming down the line between communities that never thought they'd come together. And that's really what I'm pushing in 2020.
I'm so happy to hear you guys, spreading that message and kind of continuing on the legacy, from like Nipsey and his message of positivity and learning from, different cultures and using it to better the relationships. We got a president making dumbass moves and inciting war. The only way we could change is to start with ourselves.
Well, I think all presidents be making dumb moves. Just about every single president we've had has started some sort of conflict or war. But I want to just say before we leave that the city of Inglewood is safer today than it's ever been before, not because of the government, not because of the police department, not because of the city council in Inglewood, but it's because of the people from these neighborhoods came together on their own and decided that they didn't want this for the next generation. They didn't want this for their kids. So the city of Inglewood right now is safer now than it's probably ever been before. because of them, the community, the residents, the guys from these neighborhoods. So, on that note,
Yep.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Slam TV, I wish you very much success,
Thank you.
and I'll catch you next time.
All right. Thanks, Alex. Always a pleasure.
Alrighty.